Gabrielle is likely to soon form, and most models have it becoming a hurricane. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. We are your home for Caribbean weather, and it's fantastic to see you for this Tuesday. Hope things are well. Coming up in this video, high opportunity to get a tropical depression or tropical storm Gabrielle in the next 24 hours. There's even another tropical wave that has a potential development as well. We've got some impactful weather across our region today as well. Let's get it rolling. Meteo Mundo is sponsored by the Lean Law Firm of Central Florida. They are hometown homeowners insurance attorneys. Storm season's here. You get wind, hail, hurricane damage, even a burst pipe. They can walk you through every step of the insurance claim process. It's leanonblaw.com for more information. As always, I love to hear from you guys. Let me know in that comment section below what has been happening in your area, what the weather has been like, because we do have the opportunity for quick development. We're going to start this video, of course, with the latest on 92L. Now you can clearly see this time of the year, it's very common to get overlapping potential development areas. Another wave coming off the West African coast with a 20% chance of development, but Invest 92L in red has a 90% chance of development, and that's where we'll start. Now look, it's still somewhat of a broad system. That has always been the story with this. It's actually fighting a little bit of drier air on the northwest side. You can see there's not a lot of convection there. There is some moisture around that broader center, and it is beginning to expand out, and the outflow is looking more impressive here. So we're getting close to getting a tropical depression, all right? The high-res visible satellite imagery, of course, you need the daylight to get that, so we lose it right here at the end of the day. But again, you know, what I'm noting here is pretty good outflow, still a void in the northwest side. We are wrapping some moisture around the southwest side, which was lacking yesterday, and the shear and the drier air overall is beginning to relax. It's still more present than what we would typically expect for mid-September, but, you know, ultimately, again, 92L should become a tropical depression or a tropical storm in relatively short order, all right? Now let's take a look, and I'll bring back on this formation zone for you guys. So that'll be the area in red. And then we're gonna look at our hurricane or our tropical plots, okay? Now again, because we have an Invest, we do have the spaghetti plots beginning to run. Now that we've had a full 24 hours of this, these models have really had a good idea to hone in on where the actual center of circulation is. So you're now seeing a more concise, consolidated, you know, movement of those spaghetti plots. We don't have a lot of outliers. They're all within this potential development area. Again, that's what that is. We don't have the first track, but your potential development area is kind of a first blush track for the hurricane center, and it does follow a lot of these tropical models as well. The farthest south and west that this potential development area gets is still north and east of the Lesser Antilles and the Leeward Islands by about 130 miles from Anguilla, but where most of the models are bringing what is likely to become Gabrielle is more like 500 miles to the north and to the east. So, you know, again, at this point in time, we still have a good buffer, and we're going to look at all the different models with you guys to have a northern turn and a recurve before it gets into the eastern Caribbean. Now, again, this doesn't mean that there couldn't be some impacts out of what is likely to become Gabrielle, but as far as direct impacts and where the models are trying to bring this storm, it is likely to begin a recurve before it gets to places like Barbuda and Antigua and Anguilla, St. Kitts and Nevis. Now down the road, our friends in Bermuda, obviously with that recurve scenario, we'll have to monitor the situation for you there. But again, as the recording of this video, not a depression or a storm yet, but I think in fairly short order, we're going to get there just on everything that I'm seeing. And, you know, the models take some time to slowly develop this, but, you know, in about 3 or 4 days, it really starts to potentially get strong in a hurry. And most models do have this ultimately becoming a hurricane. So now let's deep dive into those models. Again, we're looking at, you know, 92L. And we'll talk a little bit more about the next tropical wave coming up in a bit as well. So it takes a couple of days, but ultimately here, as we get towards the weekend and early next week, we end up getting a hurricane out of the GFS deterministic run. Now look, let me be clear. If this were to play out on this latest run of the GFS, this would not be a good scenario for Bermuda. You would have a hurricane very close. I want to be very clear, right? The GFS model, as just one model, has been all over the place with most of the recurve east of Bermuda, and I'll show you the other models which are farther away from Bermuda. So if you live in Bermuda, Obviously, this is a storm we have to closely monitor, but don't be alarmed the fact that this one run of the GFS deterministic hasn't pointed your way. There's still a ton of variability. And let me be clear, until we get a true defined low-level center, the models really have a tough time with this. It's the blessing and the curse, if you will, of having all of this information and model data available to us before we even have a tropical depression out there. But you know, que sera, sera, that's what we've got. But we can clearly see again in about a 5 to 6 day time frame, the storm wraps up fairly quickly as the shear and the drier air relaxes across the storm, and we get into more kind of typical potential development with a September storm, right? Now, movement is still going to be in question based on the placement of our Bermuda High and a little bit of troughing in the Western Atlantic Basin to try and pull the storm north. Some members of the GFS and the European ensembles are a little bit more aggressive with that. We'll look at some other different models that aren't as aggressive, but a general fairly quick north latitude track is expected. And again, you know, when you're looking at this, if we just take a look at the GFS model here, again, these are going to be our wind profiles. If I pause this, even as we get into, you know, let's say early in the weekend, we're just beginning to wrap up this storm as it's north of Anguilla. And again, on the GFS here towards the center of circulation, you're about 500 miles away, right? So there would be no direct impacts whatsoever on the GFS model from what would be a rapidly developing Hurricane Gabrielle. Could it throw some moisture with a south wind as the storm pulls away from the area? Yes, but obviously, much like an Aaron, we wouldn't have direct impacts from a strengthening hurricane as it moves north of that area. This is the overall ensemble members of the GFS. So I just showed you the deterministic, which again is pulling just east of Bermuda. You do have the ensemble mean, which is closer to Bermuda, but there is a large spread. Now, a few of the GFS members have a weaker storm tracking farther west, and we'll talk more about that, but they are the outliers overall to the GFS and the European models. This is the European ensemble members. Again, you can clearly see a fairly quick gain in north latitude, well away from the Lesser and the Greater Antilles. Really blowing up as we get towards the weekend and early next week by next Monday. Here's Bermuda. Most of the European models have a recurve before it gets to Bermuda, which would be good because it would put the weaker west side of the storm towards Bermuda. Notice there's a couple of areas of low pressure in the Atlantic Basin. This will be something to monitor as that next tropical wave could be moving farther south in latitude across the Atlantic Basin compared to Invest 92L. There's not a lot in the European model, but when I show you the AI version of the European model, first note again, a quick recurve of what's likely to become Gabrielle east of Bermuda, but also note that the next tropical wave, which the Hurricane Center has that yellow area, that 20% chance, is more aggressively developed in the European AI model by next Tuesday morning, so about a week out. So it is one that ultimately kind of in a day or two will flip the page as long as what is likely to become Gabrielle wants to stay a fish storm and have to monitor the situation in the Atlantic Basin for the next tropical wave that shows signs of already potential development with that 20% chance. And there's another wave behind that that could also be developing. It's that time of the year. The tropical wave train coming off the West African coast all have general mid to high likelihood of tropical development with them. But again, European AI model is mainly east of Bermuda, but a few are a little bit closer. This is the overall European tracks, not the AI, but the overall European model. And again, it's a quick north latitude. So if we get the European model to play out here, that's not bad news whatsoever at all, staying well away from the eastern side of the Caribbean. Icon model, if there's one of interest, it's number one with a bullet. And it's because it's a weaker storm that tracks much closer to the Leeward Islands, the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, and ultimately Turks and Caicos and portions of the Bahamas. But again, a weaker storm kind of riding under that ridge. We have the Atlantic High pushed a little bit farther west overall, which should nudge it a little bit more west. So, you know, some of the Atlantic, basin and where the Bermuda High sits compared to the GFS and the European Icon model and how strong it is would push the storm a little bit farther west. But it is much weaker. This would be a weak tropical storm if it were to do more of a direct west path. This is the same situation the Icon model showed this time yesterday. So It's nothing else. It's had some run-to-run consistency, and we'll see how that plays out. Interesting note along this trough line, it also tries to develop a weak area of low pressure off the southeast side of Florida towards the northern Bahamas, which this time of the year we always have to monitor that. And again, it doesn't really pick up on the one tropical wave the European AI has, but it does have a secondary wave beginning to develop early next week in the middle of the Atlantic basin, which again is pretty likely. HWRF model for Invest 92L. So now we have these tropical models beginning to run. 1 o'clock-ish on Sunday, nearly a major hurricane, sustained winds of 108 miles an hour, right? But it is in the open waters. Let me show you the HAFS-A model. Loop this up, look at the fast development, really beginning on Friday, and look how quickly you snap a finger and you get yourself a major Category 4 hurricane, all right? Now, snapshot of Sunday afternoon on the HAFS-A model. It's exactly what I just showed you, but it's the last frame. So Sunday afternoon, here's the good news. This is about 550 miles northwest of Anguilla. Huge buffer to play with on the HAFS-A, and that's good news because it has it as a Category 4 hurricane by Sunday afternoon. If we look at the intensity, there you go. There's your HWRF model, and the HAFS-A coming along for the ride as well, up to a Cat 4, all right? And many of the others begin to develop it into a Category 1 or Category 2 storm towards the weekend and early next week. Ultimately, it's not out of the question that this ends up becoming a major hurricane. And if that's the case, we want this to stay a fish storm as much as possible. Even towards Bermuda, we want it to pull off towards the east. But there are some of our hurricane or our tropical models that are beginning to really make this storm very strong very quickly. Friends, if you want to follow all these tropical updates and the latest forecasts across the Caribbean and the Bahamas, make sure you hit that like button for me right now as we take a quick pause. Hit the subscribe button for me as well. And again, my one ask of you guys is to share this channel with your family and friends, or just one person in particular. Even if they watch other weather content here on YouTube, maybe they'll get something out of the videos that they see here on Meteo Mundo, and they'll want to become a frequent watcher just like you guys are as well. Thanks for the memberships. Thanks for the super thanks as well. Now we're going to dive into what's happening in the area today. Few things to note for Jamaica. Thunderstorm at sea warning, strong wind and large wave advisory. We have the excessive rainfall watch for Belize for 2 to 4 inches of rain in the next 24 hours. And Costa Rica and Panama currently at this time are under some sorts of flood warnings in those areas. So this is what it looks like generally. Now, if you guys are new to Meteo Mundo, we'll always talk about the most prolific or interesting thing first. If it's tropic, it's tropic. But otherwise, I do a daily forecast across these areas. So we're going to deep dive into what's been some pretty active weather for today. We'll start off in the Windward Islands, where we did have a yellow alert for the western side of Trinidad earlier today with some healthy showers and storms near the Port of Spain area. Those have since subsided, and that has been discontinued, but we've continued to see the opportunity for some flooding rains there. Obviously, cool things down there at Port of Spain. I'm going to throw on the wind gusts. Otherwise, for Tobago and Grenada and Barbados and St. Vincent and the Grenadines and St. Lucia, it's been a lovely Tuesday. This is our live camera to Corinth, St. Lucia. If you guys don't know, we have live cameras across the Caribbean to help tell your weather story, whether it's sunny out, we've got some kind of tropical system coming in. We can show you these live cameras, but it's a sun-glistened late Tuesday across St. Lucia. Little bit of moisture beginning to develop over Martinique and Dominica, which has spelled a few spotty showers today and some cloud coverage, 25-mile-an-hour wind in Guadeloupe. So again, a few passing showers here, but you get north of there, Montserrat, especially Antigua, Barbuda, towards Anguilla, we're starting to see additional tropical moisture creep in. Now, again, this broader disturbance has nothing to do with 92L, but there is general troughing right now in the western Atlantic basin, and you can clearly see that blow up of tropical moisture, and this is beginning to impact our northeast areas. So I expect it to be a very wet forecast the next couple of days for Anguilla, St. Martin, St. Bart's, Saba, St. Eustatius, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua, Barbuda, maybe as far south as Montserrat and Guadeloupe, and then pulling west to the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico, where the winds have been very fresh for today as well, from Anegada to Virgin Gorda and Tortola, Jost Van Dyke, St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John, passing showers, trying to cool things off. Heat advisories again for Puerto Rico. Just a couple of showers here towards Vieques and Culebra and portions of Puerto Rico. You see Ponce's wind kicks up as the showers move through to around 30 miles an hour. But there has been many dry hours in locations for today. So a lot of the story here has actually been the heat. These are your actual air temperatures, which in a lot of spots were over 90 degrees Fahrenheit or 32 degrees Celsius. And from time to time, they'll even get warmer than that. Thunderstorms are beginning to break out again, as they have over portions of the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Again, some of this activity is fairly prolific. A lot of lightning associated with that. I'll bring on the lightning data. Look at the thunderstorms just north of Santo Domingo. Heavy excessive rainfall. We'll get a flood advisory from time to time there. We're also seeing some really impactful thunderstorms just east of Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Look at all that lightning coming up. And again, this is a very mountainous and terrain-filled island, so you get some heavier rain in some of the higher elevations, and it can certainly lead to some problems in some of the low-lying areas. Thunderstorms, again, are building over portions of Cuba, and it has been a monstrously wet and stormy day for my friends in Jamaica. Take a look at these thunderstorms. Again, we have the thunderstorm at sea warning across all coastal areas and the offshore southern coast and offshore waters, and then we also have the large wave and strong wind advisory. Boy, these storms have really ramped up. Earlier in the day, they actually developed on the northern coastline and kind of eked back down near the Kingston area, Linstead, Old Harbor, and then another huge batch has developed in the western areas, especially Hanover, Westmoreland parishes, portions of St. James and St. Elizabeth as well. Look at all of that lightning, my friends. 36-mile-an-hour wind there in Montego Bay. So thunderstorms have been very prolific in western parishes, and they'll continue to push off towards the west late into this Tuesday that we go. Look, I can't even rule out a couple of showers redeveloping, and I hope some of the areas that have been desperate for rain in Jamaica, because it has been feast or famine on the island for quite some time, got some rain today. My friends in Jamaica, please let me know in the comments section below if you're one of those areas desperate for rain that actually had some. Cayman Islands have been fairly wet and stormy today, especially towards Grand Cayman. Now, heavier rain, even richer thunderstorms, if you will, off towards the west, but we've had relatively overcast skies and a few storms around Grand Cayman and a few overcast conditions and some light showers possible for Little Cayman and Cayman Brac. Over to Turks and Caicos and our friends in the southeast Bahamas. Scattered in nature is indeed the story of the day. A couple of thunderstorms towards Anagua, but mainly dry so far for Grand Turk and the Caicos, Mayaguana and the Acklins. A little bit of thunderstorm activity there. Really spotty thunderstorms over Exuma and Long Island for today. Rum Key and San Salvador. Slightly more concentrated, but beginning to break up a little bit here over the northwest Bahamas. Look, there's still going to be some decent storm chances the next few days, but it hasn't been as widespread as what we've had lately. But the live radar data, you can see the thunderstorms over the west end, Freeport, Lucaya area towards High Rock there in Grand Bahama, pushing over portions of the Abacos, northern sides of Andros, and certainly New Providence. We'll get a couple of passing showers and an isolated thunderstorm here. Of course, another live camera we have is central Eleuthera. It's Governor's Harbor in the Bahamas. You can clearly see a couple of decks of clouds and a little bit more in the way of, again, just some active weather here. It's dry at the hour in central Eleuthera, but the opportunity for a passing shower or a rumble of thunder there, certainly not out of the question. All right, back over to our live data here. Let me drop off the radar data and we'll continue. Overall, again, the Western Caribbean continues to be quite active. And please excuse me, take a quick sip of water here. This is going to be an area where I think we're going to continue to have numerous storms, impactful heavier rain, and some flooding. Really deep moisture right now, southern and western tips of Cuba. This is going to slip over to portions of the Yucatan. And again, just high rain chances, Cancun, Cozumel, the Chetumal area back down towards Belize, Guatemala. Portions of Guatemala yesterday had significant flash flooding, and I can't rule out heavy rain and leading to flash flooding in these areas again. Belize is under an excessive rainfall watch for 2 to 4 inches of rain. If you've had some localized flooding, let me know. As always, I love for you guys to send in a picture or video. It's myMediaMundo@gmail.com. I'll show you that email coming up, but you can find it in the link in the description below as well. We could see a couple of passing showers and a heavier downpour for Guanaja, Roatan, and Utila as well. Just showing you the visible satellite imagery. A lot of energy in the atmosphere, a lot of lift. It's not just tropical rain. There's some embedded thunderstorms to come along for the ride and, just producing excessive rainfall in this area. It's not a tropical depression, it's not a tropical storm, but there's a ton of tropical moisture here, and you can clearly see how wide the spread the storms are. Honduras, Nicaragua, back to Costa Rica and Panama, where again, we have the opportunity for some flooding that will continue. And then you get to the ABC Islands. I just feel like a shield is over this area. If we can get a passing downpour, that's great. Otherwise, we take this Chamber of Commerce afternoon again. Live look outside. It's the Eagle Beach area of Oranjestad. And you get just a beautiful afternoon. Breezes out there, sun glistening off of the beach. Fantastic. No notes. Let's move on. We'll jump into what's going to be happening over the next couple of days. Now, again, to reiterate, 92L, next tropical wave coming off the West African coast. This one could raise a little bit more eyebrow as we get into the weekend, as long as it keeps a more southerly route, all right? And that is clearly shown from the Hurricane Center's potential development. It's almost due west at this point in time, and certainly much more lower latitude than ultimately what 92L / what is likely to become Gabrielle should take. So down the road, if this can develop, this is an area to monitor for potential impacts into the Eastern Caribbean this time next week. But we're way down the road to be getting into it more than anything as far as the potential there. But again, it is an area that Hurricane Center has highlighted with that 20% chance, and that should only grow. We already looked at the models that showed you that that opportunity should be there. But ultimately for the next few days, right, this is all going to be some localized showers and storms with some heavier rain. We're still going to have some tropical waves and the disturbances coming in. And you can clearly see, again, as I've mentioned, from, like the Guadalupe area, Montserrat, Antigua, Barbuda, Leeward Islands in general, Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico. It's just a wet forecast, which is good news for the heat. But there could be some excessive rain here. It's going to kick up surf and sea conditions as well, so boaters need to be very cautious outside. And again, we're just going to continue having a pretty active forecast that pushes into the Dominican Republic and Haiti, feeds and fuels their opportunity for some flooding rains there over the next few days. After a little bit of a break in the Bahamas, we're going to get more active weather. I still have a pretty darn high likelihood of some good rain in the northern and the northwest Bahamas, from Nassau, New Providence, and Eleuthera and Andros north towards Grand Bahama. Scattered showers and storms for the central and the southeast Bahamas, Turks and Caicos. Still very wet as a possibility over Cuba. Now, some of this moisture does try and feed west, but we also have this trough line, as I mentioned, to kind of pull in some of the moisture. If you saw that in the satellite imagery, some of the moisture here in the Northwest Caribbean is actually getting fed over the Straits of Florida and into the northern side of the Bahamas and the Western Atlantic Basin. And that kind of fetch of moisture should continue. So ultimately, rain chances will stay relatively high for Jamaica and Grand Cayman and Little Cayman and Cayman de Brac as well. High rain chances for Central America and the Yucatan, where again, excessive rainfall is not out of the question. 60, 70, 80% chance for rain in a lot of spots. It's not just the Caribbean coast, but Tegucigalpa, Guatemala City, Managua could all see some very heavy rainfall as well. San Jose, Panama, a lot of the major areas of Central America could be in store for some very, very wet weather, despite the fact we're not talking about anything tropically. Boy, I'd love to get some better rain chances for the ABC Islands. Again, it's sparse at this point in time, maybe up to a 20% chance in the next couple of days. And ultimately, the Windward Islands in general will be a little bit drier. There'll be more passing showers, Barbados, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, TNT, Nueva Esparta, towards Martinique and Dominica. Again, north, it's wetter, but here, we've just got a couple of spotty showers in the forecast the next few days. This is what it does look like island by island. Northwest Bahamas, 50 tomorrow, 60 Thursday, 40 on Friday. Might be underdoing it a bit. It's going to stay wet. More scattered or isolated showers and storms. Central and southeast side, Turks and Caicos. Very heavy rain and numerous storms over Cuba. Cayman Islands rain chances stay on the elevated side. Belize City, again, excessive rainfall watch. 70% chance tomorrow, still 60 on Thursday, slightly drier Friday. Cancun and Cozumel stay with solid rain chances for the rest of the work week. Jamaica's rain chance still high tomorrow, 60% chance, 50 Thursday, Friday. Look at the rain chances for our eastern areas. Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, 80% chance. USVI and BVI, 80% chance tomorrow, still 80 on Thursday, somewhat drier Friday, but it's all relative because these are elevated rain chances for the rest of the week. Bermuda doesn't have a lot of rain in the forecast the next couple days. Obviously, we'll monitor the ultimate track of what's going to become Gabrielle. Anguilla, St. Kitts and Nevis, it's an 80% chance tomorrow, Thursday and Friday, 50, 60, 70, 70% chance Antigua, Barbuda, Montserrat, 50 to 60 Thursday, Friday. It will tail off a bit into Friday, but still good rain chances overall. 60, 70% chance all the way down towards Dominica. And again, the cutoff is about Martinique South, where I expect it to be more isolated with more dry hours and locations, especially down towards Barbados and Grenada and TNT. Just not a lot. Now, could there be localized heavy rain like western sides of Trinidad today? Absolutely. But this is going to be a widespread, wide-scale tropical disturbance bringing numerous showers across the entire region? No, not in the southern half of the island chain. Suriname and Guyana, scattered showers. Nueva Esparta and the ABC Islands will be desperate for some rain. Now, again, ultimately, we're going to build up the wave heights, Western Caribbean, straight to Florida, Western Basin, and then whatever this ends up becoming. Would expect some long period swells. Leeward Islands, Virgin Islands, northern sides of Puerto Rico, northern sides of Hispaniola, in the eastern sides of the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos. Again, just long period easterly swells coming in with what ultimately is likely to become a hurricane as we get to about Monday, Tuesday here on the GFS model. Again, that's based off the GFS deterministic, so you see it's making a close run towards Bermuda. This is the European model looping rainfall totals. Again, excessive rainfall likely in our western areas, more heavy rain for a lot of the Bahamas, some heavier rainfall for Hispaniola and Puerto Rico, and obviously a tremendous amount of rain coming in with the European model with what's to become Gabrielle, but it stays a fish storm on the European model. That's all just falling off in the open waters. Friends, you can follow us across all of our social media platforms and other areas. Instagram, TikTok, X, and Facebook. There's the email address. It's mymediamundo@gmail.com. If you guys like to send me a picture or video, please remember that Media Mundo is sponsored by the Lean Law Firm of Central Florida. They're your hometown homeowners insurance attorneys. They offer free consultation and policy reviews. So if you do get storm damage of any kind, if you've been in an auto accident, they can help you out. You want to support someone who supports the channel. You got nothing to lose. Go check out leanomelaw.com for more information. If you have a specific question about the forecast, drop it in the comments section below. And as always, I really do appreciate you guys taking that quick second, hitting the like button and the subscribe button for me. Both of those support the channel more than you guys even think. Friends, take care. Have a great rest of your day. I'm back tomorrow with your latest forecast right here at Media Mundo.